So how do we know which muscles in the pelvis we need to train in a young man who presents with pelvic girdle pain? So first of all, we need to assess their ability for their brain to find and recruit their pelvic floor in conjunction with transversus abdominis, and also their ability to connect to and recruit the sacral fibers of multifidus. We're on the very back of your pelvis. So I'm going to palpate just medial to the ASISs, sink my thumbs through into the abdomen, and then I'm going to ask you to very, very gently just connect to your pelvic floor and then relax, and I need 50% of that contraction. Good. So he can connect and contract to his transversus quite well. And often in guys with pelvic girdle pain, there may be one side that comes on before the other. Now let's see what the impact is of this contraction on the effort it takes for him to lift his leg. So what I want you to do is just very gently lift the left leg and back down. Lift your right leg and back down. And now do that same connect cue, pelvic floor and TA. Now lift your left leg and down. Keep the connection. Lift your right leg. Is there any change in the effort to lift your leg with that connect cue?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, okay. That's a surprise. So does it make it easier or harder?
Easier.
Easier. Which leg gets easier?
Left.
All right. So that suggests that if he had a little bit more recruitment of his transversus or pelvic floor, that the effort to perform this task would be slightly easier, all right? And the reason why I was surprised is because our model doesn't have too many problems with his pelvis. Now, if I slide my hands posteriorly so that my fingers are sinking into the sacral fibers of multifidus, my fingers are just medial to the posterior superior iliac spine. And the first thing I'm going to do is check for automatic recruitment. So think of nothing, lift your left foot off the table and down. And lift the right foot and down. Is there any effort difference to lift one leg or the other?
Right's easier.
Right's easier, so the left's harder. So now the rest becomes about the left. Imagine a line or a guy wire from here, and I'm poking just medial to the left PSIS to here, and I'm poking just medial to the right one. Beautiful, nice connection. Keep that. Now lift the left leg up off the table. Does that change the effort that's required?
Yes.
Yes,
easier.
so let's combine the two together now. I want a very gentle 10 to 15% contraction pelvic floor and your abdomen. Add a little bit of multifidus. Now lift the leg. And does that make it easier still?
Yeah.
So this is like the eyeglasses test. Is it clearer now or now? Do you like it better here or here? And you keep layering on different parts of these deep muscles to see how much more do we need from each one. And then you can decide which muscles are not working hard enough or could be coming on more that would facilitate this task. So that's how you decide whether or not you need more TA with pelvic floor, more multifidus with the pelvic floor, or do you need a little bit of both? So stage 1 training when pelvic girdle pain is fairly intense is really difficult if you do it in supine lying or with the person lying on your back or with you lying on your back. So sometimes it's easier to start this training in the side lying position. So you lie on your side, making sure that your lumbar spine is perpendicular to the table, so not rolled back and not rolled excessively forward. You make sure that your hips and knees are stacked on top of one another, and so are your ankles. So that's the setup for this exercise. Now, the first thing you will have identified at this time is what do you need to contract? What do you need to connect to? Your pelvic floor and TA? Your multifidus, or a little bit of both, right? So you would then connect to that deep system, keep the ankles together, and gently lift the knee. Hold for up to about 5 seconds, slowly lower the knee, let the connect cue go. So this would be stage 1 training without integrating breathing. And sometimes I don't integrate the breathing right away because they have enough to think about with just co-activating these 3 groups of muscles in the pelvis. And you may find that you hold your breath when you first start, and that's quite okay. When we move on to the next stage of training, we're going to integrate breathing into it. So don't worry if you are holding your breath during the first couple of weeks. How many do you do? What is the dosage, and how often do you do it? This is like language and less like an exercise. So you want to doing these things frequently, and you want to be only doing as many as you can do well. So how do you know if you're doing this exercise properly? If you get a sense of how easy or hard it is to lift the knee without connecting, and then compare it to how much easier it is when you do connect, you will get a sense of when the leg goes heavy, when you're doing this exercise, that something in that deep system has shut off. So then you merely lower the leg, reset, reconnect, and see if you can lift the leg and reproduce that nice light sensation. And if you can, keep going. But often you will have reached the limit of what you're able to do well. And maybe it's 6 repetitions. Maybe it's the second set of 6 repetitions. And it can vary each time that you're doing the exercise. So you take it to the point where you can't do it well anymore. And then you repeat that session 3 or 4 times a day. And the more frequent you do these, the faster your mind-body connection is going to come back, and you can move into stage 2 training. So after about a week or 2 of doing this stage 1 training for the deep muscles of your pelvis, you should be ready to move on to stage 2, which is where we begin to build capacity or strength and endurance in not only the muscles that support your pelvis, but also in the neural pathways from your brain to the body for this. Okay? And it looks like this. The first thing we have to do is we have to ensure that you are able to integrate breathing with this connect cue so that we don't train a strategy that only can happen if you hold your breath. All right? So that's the first task. So it looks like this. So just take a nice breath in for me. And on the exhale breath, connect and slowly lift the knee. Hold, inhale, and on the exhale breath, lower the knee. And sometimes you may have to do this for 2 or 3 days before you actually move on to higher load. So be sure that you can breathe and coordinate the co-activation of these muscles and lift the leg at the same time before you move on to this next exercise, which is still stage 2. So stage 2 is about static control of your pelvis and moving another part of your body, okay? And breathing. So inhale, exhale, lift the knee. Now, can you lift the ankle off the other ankle without lowering the knee? Perfect. Hold for 5 seconds. Keep breathing. Beautiful. Slowly lower the foot. Slowly lower the knee. And that may be as far as you take this exercise and repeat it. So 3 sets of 5 or 7 repetitions, however many you can do with good quality, 3 to 4 times a day. When that gets fairly simple, you can increase the lever arm and increase the challenge by simply extending the leg. And it looks like this. Breathe in, breathe out and connect. Lift the knee, lift the ankle. Breathe in to hold. And on the exhale breath, make sure you're staying connected and straighten the leg. Bring that back in, lower the foot, and lower the knee. So it's a much more challenging exercise in that the lever arm is longer, the weight is longer, the load on the pelvis is more. And if you need more resistance in this, you can start adding a resistance band to the foot that they can hang on to. They can be pressing, doing single leg presses into the resistance band until you really feel that they can do 3 sets of 6 or 7 good quality leg extensions, maintaining a nice stable pelvis and moving the hip through a flexion to extension, but not full extension, but into an extension range. So that would be a really nice stage 2 training for somebody who still has mild to, I wouldn't say moderate, but sort of mild to less than moderate pelvic girdle pain inside lying. As soon as you can, you want to begin your exercise program in standing because vertical loading is what we need to train for young men with pelvic girdle pain. And if that's you, this is what you need to start doing as soon as you can. So you're going to start in a standing position. You've already figured out what you need to connect to. So you connect to those muscles in the deep system and simply go down into a butt back squat. And then come on back up. Butt back squat. And when that gets easy, you shift your weight over onto one leg, back to center, over onto the other leg. One may be harder to do than the other. Come back to center, and then back up to standing. Things to look for in this exercise is that as you're shifting your weight, you're not collapsing in your knee or your foot. You're keeping your knee right over the foot, and you're not leaving your thorax behind or your chest behind. You're not pushing your pelvis out. That everything transfers over to the foot at the same time. Okay? Now, when that gets easy, then you can make it harder by starting going into a single leg squat. So we go connect, we go down into the squat, shift your weight to one side, see if you can pick up the opposite leg, put it back down, come back to center and stand up. And you would do that on each side. When that's easy, you can then start adding some toe taps to make it a little more challenging to your balance on that leg that you're standing on. So always connect first, squat, shift your weight completely over the foot, leave nothing behind, pick the foot up, tap it forward, to the side, to the other side, behind, and back, come back to center, and stand up, all right? So some pretty challenging exercises that will help integrate glute control, glute strength with your core strength, working on the alignment between your thorax and your pelvis, all of which will serve you well for having a more functional, less painful pelvis. So for this stage 2 exercise, what you'll need is a fairly long resistance band. And the setup is that you are going to stand on the band with your feet about hip widths apart, or however comfortable it is for you to have your feet for you to do a squat. Now, where your hands are on the band really depends on how strong you are and how much you need to take up or choke up on the band to get the resistance that you need. So you don't want it to be so hard that you lose control, but you want it hard enough so that it challenges the system just enough, all right? So it looks like this. We always connect first, go down into your butt back squat, which should be getting quite easy for you now. And then it just starts with a simple bicep curl. So one side, then the other, and then you can do both. And then when that gets easy, when you can do 3 sets of 10 of those fairly easy, we can increase the lever arm by doing it with a straight elbow, one arm at a time. And then the left one. And then what makes it even harder is doing both arms going forward, where we're simulating a lifting task. And often what will happen in this situation is that people will start to extend their back like this. So it's really important you engage the tummy muscles a little bit more. And then with the arms coming up straight, you don't lose your form between your chest and your pelvis. So this is a stage 2 training exercise for pelvic control, adding longer lever arm loading through the arms. So stage 3 training is all about reintroducing more complex movements, such as turning your head in one direction, turning your chest in the opposite, turning your chest one way, turning your pelvis the opposite. So a fundamental exercise that is not easy to do well, but is really good to practice for walking, for running, for so many sports or so many activities are called walking lunges. So let's have a look at how our model here performs these so well. This is what you really want to try to achieve if you have pelvic girdle pain. Now, if you have the space in your house or wherever you're training, you don't have to go forward and back. You can continue the walking lunges, continuing going forward or continuing going backwards for a series of steps.